My name is Bill Anton, and we're talking today about some of the stories, the things that keep us interested in what we do, and some of the historical things that we look at and research as we go about the business of painting pictures and looking at some of our favorite artists' work. Frederick Remington was born back east, and he never really lived in the West. I believe he was trained as a dentist or something like that, but he was one of the great early Western painters, one of the ones that really popularized the cowboy in art along with Charles Russell. They were contemporaries of each other, born within just a few years of each other. 1861, I believe, is when he was born, and he died very, very young in 1909. The last 10 years of Remington's life, he really began to understand broken color and was influenced by some of the Impressionists that were coming along, and he morphed from strictly illustrator to someone who was really a fine art easel painter, and his work took on a sophistication with broken color and sort of dashing brushwork that was really the hallmark of his later years and was really markedly different from the illustration and the tighter renderings that he was doing earlier in his career. I like the way he grew in his powers. You could almost categorize his careers by the competency of his work. It kept getting better and better and better and more sophisticated, and he died very, very young. He was only about 49 years old, and I don't even know if he was that old. And I always think about the paintings we missed out on because he died so young. One of the things that I always loved about having art books around is because there's different kinds of film that is used in them, and particularly if they're older books, they would have reproductions that are no longer used because of digital film and all of that. And you can, as an artist, you can find some interesting things about how an artist designs his pictures, what decisions he makes, why he makes those decisions. Those things are always interesting to me because as someone who places figures on a canvas and arranges them the way he wants to, you have any number of different possibilities. Looking at Frederick Remington's In from the Night Herd is a really interesting example because now that painting hangs at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, and I've looked at it, studied at it many, many times, studied it close up, and tried to see what the camera sees in the older reproductions, and it's not there. The interesting thing about this is he did a painting of someone coming in from a night herd, and he's standing obviously in front of or near a campfire with some of his night guard friends who are not out on night guard yet, still in their bedrolls. And he has just come in with his horse, and he's on a gray, which is largely lit up by the campfire, as is he and his duster and his hat. How Remington decided to place the cowboy in front of the horse always gave me pause because it's kind of an odd decision that he made. But that's only because that's not the original decision. If you look at certain old reproductions of that photograph, you will see that there is a ghost image of the horse coming out the other side of the cowboy's shoulder. When you look at the painting in person, it's not there. But the older kinds of film saw through the layers of paint, and there's a little ghost image. And that gives me a little bit of comfort because it tells me a couple of things. First of all, it tells me I'm thinking along the same lines as he would have been, because I would have hesitated not to put that horse coming out the other side of his shoulder. But when he saw it in the flesh, when he painted it in that way, it bothered him and it didn't look right. So he painted it out. But it's not visible in the painting anymore, but it is visible in the older photographs of that work. And so little things like that I find interesting because it gives you insight into how he was thinking, what he was thinking about, and he's encountering the exact same problems that I encounter when I put together a picture. where do you place everything? Because I'm not working exclusively from photographs, so you have the ability to manipulate everything, and certain decisions may sound good in theory, but when you put them into practice, they don't work. So you have to have the flexibility to compensate for that, paint it out, rearrange it, whatever. I was listening to a guard, or a tour person at any rate, he had a uniform on, at the Cowboy Hall, leading a tour, and they were talking about this painting. And I was listening to see if the guard would mention what I'd noticed, but you would almost have to have a collection of older art books to have known that something was like that. Now, this is not the older book. You can't see the ghost image in this book, but in some of the ones that I have in the studio, you can see. But I wanted to make sure that I had the name of the painting right, so that's why I got out The Color of Night here. That was a show that was touring the country on Remington night scenes a few years ago. And he didn't have the experience to know that there was at one time just the smallest part of that horse's head peeking out from the other side of that cowboy's shoulder. And I wanted to see if he did, but he didn't. And I don't know that all that many people know about that. It's just, I find those things interesting.